you sometimes get sucked into the vortex of writing it? Because I'm going to tell you, at one point I was reading now, I think I was in like right near the end of the main part, getting into 2, and I had to leave. I left my house to go to places I go normally, and I was kind of feeling like, am I really where, you know what I mean? I wasn't seeing other things, but I had felt like I had been stretched with both the characters. So you're writing something like this, you have to like, you know, some actors when they're doing a role, they gotta kind of like take some time after, shake it off and stuff like that.
It wasn't in Remembrance, the first book. I struggled with that because I would get so angry writing a scene, you know, about the slave revolt or something. There's a scene where an enslaved man tries to run away, and then he's captured, and they set him on fire. And I was so upset writing that and so angry. I wrote the scene, and then I had to write. You know, it's like I can't write for a couple days. It just got to me, and it's like I need to let it go. And I think that emotion drives what goes on the page, but it's also I just can't shed it.
Right.
Immediately, it's like, okay, I need to watch cat videos.
But I want to talk about the 2 characters. They find each other in this thing that happens to them. They both have this, you know, kind of team, whatever goes over them. Which I don't think I was a small crowd. I might get into something that used to happen to me from when I was a little child. It wasn't related to being in other places. It doesn't happen very often anymore, but it happened a lot. Up the back of my spine, through the top of my head. If I think too much or too hard about death in any kind of way, but it's very rare. When I read that, I was like, okay, I've never, I'm just sharing it with all y'all. I don't really share that with people, but I thought, I kind of identified with something happening that you can't really explain. But sometimes it could still happen. But when I saw that, I was like, oh, I think I know a little bit of how they feel. Now, they both shared the same process to be sucked in to that vortex. But they also share many other things.
Yeah.
They have a lot of dreams deferred. Her dream deferred is because of this, and I want to ask about how you named this neurological condition. That condition, and she was high, you know, doing really well in New York. They were living the dream couple. And he, which I got surprised because later in the book, you know, he goes to his mother's house and all of a sudden whips up the piano, and that's what he really wanted to do all his life. Right. So they already are connected by that. But I wanted to ask you, is some of you as being a doctor and a writer, that's what I want. Is there any connection with you with Monty in that part?
I can certainly identify with that.
That's what I know.
Because I wanted to be a writer, not a doctor. And I'm one of those fortunate people that I'm fairly good at most things that I put my mind to. The medicine part was a deferential thing to my parents. Right. This was their dream, not for me to be a doctor, but for me to go to, you know, they actually, you know, and I had high school counselors who actually said, smart black girls don't do the art. You go to law school, you go to med school, maybe architecture school, but something. You become a professional. You know, I was president of the National Honor Society, student council president, you know, so I was that kid. But it's like, but that's not what I want to do. But I wasn't, in all honesty, I wasn't confident enough. I was very shy and not sure of myself. And so I didn't have the confidence or the strength of character to fight that. It was like, okay. And my mom's thing was, well, you know, you can write in your spare time. Medical residents don't have it. But I didn't know that at the time. I certainly identify with Monty in terms of knowing and always being felt as a really smart black kid that I had this obligation. You know, you have to.
You're carrying.
I'm carrying the generations, and So, and that talented 10th conversation was a conversation that we had in our family all the time. And I don't even want to say I was resentful. It just was the milieu that I grew up in. So, but writing the Monty character, I could feel, his
Desire
you feel
to-
very torn. Like, this isn't me, but I also feel that obligation, and as you notice in the book, he pushes back, but he doesn't walk away. He does
because
not
he
walk
really
away.
cares about healing people.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
He doesn't hate his job. It's
No.
just not the thing that fills his soul.
But I would have never thought that other thing was there until all of a sudden it pops up in the book. I mean, sometimes with your other character, we know right away that's what she's going. Actually, she's doing a reverse.
Yeah,
in a
she's
way.
lost her.
She's lost her. She's going to find something.
When he says, I need to create something beautiful, and his mother says something to the effect of, yes, but beautiful things can be created in the healing of people. He's meaning music.
Yes.
She's saying, but the beauty that you're going to create is bringing new life into the world, saving a man's life so he can walk his daughter down the aisle. So that's her argument back to him. So she's not insensitive to his. There's a bigger, the world is bigger than that. We have a bigger obligation than just what we want.
Right, exactly.
And that's the sacrifice he's expected to make.
Right. So you just mentioned the talented 10. So I'm just going to say I'm from Detroit. I don't walk in the same shoes she is, but we grew up at the same time. And I knew nothing about that. So the talented 10th, if you all don't know, I can explain it more, but it's the upper 10% of African Americans who were educated business people and they were held responsible to, be in behest of lift everybody else up, pave the way. And I'm not going to remember. It actually was an exact counterpart to something from one of the AMAs in like Georgia or Atlanta, where it was like, okay, have everyone be a farmer.
Oh, that was George Washington Carver, right?
Right.
But so the phrase was coined by W.E. Du Bois, and in the early part, like the predecessor to the NAACP was the Niagara Movement,
Right.
In the first decade or so of the 20th century, and so there were these two schools of thought. George Washington Carver felt like, one generation, 2 generations removed from slavery, we need to teach our people the trades. But W.E. Du Bois came from a whole different kind of a background. He was upper middle class, educated in Boston, Harvard educated, and so he felt that he wasn't, diminishing that, but it was like, no, we have a responsibility. We have people who had generational wealth as African Americans. They personally are not 1 or 2 generations removed from slavery. Some of these people were never enslaved. So they have money, they have land, they have education, they have resources, they're in politics, medicine, law, and those people have an opportunity